ethanoic acid, as you can see here, is made up of carbon with 3 hydrogens attached, each of them covalently bonded. And then what it also has is another carbon covalently bonded, but this time this carbon has got one oxygen which has a double bond and another oxygen which has a single bond. But if you know anything about covalent bonding, what you should know is that for the atoms to have a full outer shell, they should have 8 electrons in their outer shell, except for hydrogen. And if you count the number of electrons in my diagram, you should note that the oxygen is actually missing one. It only has 7. So therefore, the oxygen will share electrons with a hydrogen. Now, what we therefore have is ethanoic acid. And the reason it's called ethanoic acid is because what we actually have with the carbon, with the oxygen and hydrogen is we have what's known as a carboxylic acid group. This group at the end, the COO, that is what makes this now an acid. So ethanoic acid is actually a weak acid. And the reason it's called a weak acid is it will only partially ionize in solution. But what does that mean? So if I have ethanoic acid and I am dissolving it into water, it is going to be able to show its acidic properties. And that's because when we put it into water, what will happen is it will dissolve and it will then release the hydrogen ion. So here we have ethanoate ion and a hydrogen ion. So this is very similar to hydrogen and chloride. So what makes this different, instead of it being a strong acid like hydrochloric acid, what makes it a weak acid? Well, yes, those ions can be separated, but actually what can also happen is it can work in the opposite way. So what we have is ethanoic acid is a weak acid because it will only partially ionize in solution. It's a reversible reaction. And because it's a reversible reaction, it won't fully ionize like the hydrochloric acid, like the nitric acid, like the sulfuric acid. It will only partially ionize. For every 100 molecules of ethanoic acid, only one of them will actually release the hydrogen ion. And therefore, because of that, this is what makes it a weak acid. And there are 2 other weak acids that you should know about. You should know about citric acid and you should also know about carbonic acid.